So we're talking about negative reviews here. We've received a couple in the last couple weeks at our dealership, but just in general, I think businesses are always dealing with this, not just car dealers. I think it might be more prevalent given the stereotypes of used car salesmen, but I think any retail-facing service or sales industry is going to be constantly dealing with their online reputation. That is kind of how businesses live and die now. The biggest issue, at least for our company and maybe for others as well, is that more often than not, people do not come to us with an issue for us to resolve, but instead they talk behind our back. So we hear about things secondhand. For instance, somebody has posted on Bring a Trailer comments like, oh yeah, I heard these guys did this or that or whatever. And I'm like, who even are you and what are you talking about? Our business is not so big that I don't know or have some knowledge of just about every transaction that happens. And certainly I have knowledge of every problem that arises because I care about our reputation. I'm emotionally invested in this business. I care about my integrity, or at least, the illusion of my integrity by everybody else. When I hear about stuff from other people, it really kind of just chaps my ass because I'm like, this is secondhand information. Why do you know about this and not me? For instance, someone recently on Instagram said that they had heard of 2 issues in the last year and a half with our quote unquote guys. And I think this was in relation to our transport video. So he was talking about our transporters apparently caused some issues. I was like, what are you talking about? And so I replied, I'm like, that's funny. We haven't heard of these issues at all. So what are you talking about? And then I said, but I'd be happy to discuss this with you, set the record straight, whatever. Here's my phone number. Here's my email address. Please call me. Now, of course, he got bent out of shape and he's like, oh, well, your second response was good, but your first response showed your true character. There's nothing funny about problems, and your cavalier attitude towards this shows the real type of man you are. And I was like, it wasn't ha-ha funny, but what I'm saying is exactly the same thing. It's like, if we haven't heard of these issues from the customer, they're not issues. And so then he went all like, oh, well, I'm not going to reduce myself to calling you. You don't deserve it, whatever. And I was like, that just shows me that you didn't actually have a real complaint. It's always when people play this, I'm better than you, you don't deserve my call, whatever card, that I'm assured of my stance. And I go, yeah, you didn't actually have a problem. You just heard things or wanted to say things on the internet, but weren't ready to back them up. Now, as a constant crap talker on the internet, my goodness, I have a podcast where we talk bad about people who may or may not deserve it. We try to fact check as much as we can before we say things. I'm certainly aware that this is a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black. But if somebody confronts me about it, I'll be happy to address it as well. And people have. And I said, great, let's dig into this even more because there's more. What we talk about on the podcast is typically the tip of the iceberg from the actual full information we have. I think that's something that every business deals with, right? We can't make something right if we don't know that something's wrong. That's really, really difficult. But then what do you do with actual bad reviews or problems when people come at you on the internet? And we've had a couple lately, and I struggle with this because I am snarky by nature. I'm incredibly sarcastic. I'm not bound by any giant corporation or boss or anything. So I can be as politically incorrect as I want to, but that's a blessing and a curse. Recently, we got a 1-star comment from a guy wanting to test drive a Diablo and an NSX, and he was coming from North Dakota. But he said, I'll give him props on the phone. He was like, I'm looking at 10 different cars, Audi R8, NSX, Diablo. I don't know what I want to buy, so I need to try all these cars out to see what I like. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but that's not what we do. We have incredibly expensive insurance. It's very difficult to get. A lot of our cars aren't ours, they're consignment vehicles. So my job is to protect the vehicle for the consigner because it's their car until it isn't. And people don't understand that. They feel entitled, like, well, it's because it's for sale, like I can just do whatever I want with it. It's like, no, it's our car, it's our insurance policy, it's our business on the line here. I just, as politely as I could, kind of explain that philosophy to him and just said, our policy is that test drives happen as a part of like contingency of sale. Like, I want to buy this car, but I need to drive it before I write the final check. Okay, now we're talking. And then he's like, wow, but if somebody showed up with cash, like they brought a couple $100,000 cash, would you let them test drive? And I was like, that's not the point. I don't care about whether or not you have the money. I care about whether or not you're wasting our time. There's tons of people with tons of money who are time wasters. They're perpetual shoppers. And over 20 years of doing this, I've sniffed them out. And this guy on the phone was like, alarm bells going off. This guy's a shopper. So he left us a 1-star review, essentially like, well, if you like buying cars, like ordering pizza where you don't get to test drive them first, don't go to them. They're rude. They're this, they're that, whatever. So I was like, well, I got options here. How do I respond to this?
Did you respond?
I did respond. I did. Although I called the consignor and I was like, hey, can you leave us a review right after this and just thank us for not letting somebody test drive your car who was a tire kicker? Because I can't call him a tire kicker, but I like indirectly did. I was basically just reiterated our policy and said test drives are on a limited basis. They're for people ready to buy a car as a part of a contingency of sale. This isn't like product tryout. We don't have product demos here. So that irked him and he changed his review.
Oh, does it show up as edited? Like, can you see that?
It doesn't, but I took screenshots of both.
No way.
So he then said, because over the phone he asked us, like, well, what if somebody shows up with cash? He then said, you would think if you bring in over $150,000 in cash, you would be taken seriously and not labeled as a tire kicker. Ha ha, wow, very unintelligent group of sellers. So here we go. If you work at a big corporate dealership, you got to be PC when you respond. I don't. So where do you go with this, right? Well, what is, as a business, people want the business owner to be positive, be kind, be all these different things, I think. But I'm not so sure that's true. I think there's like two tacks to this. One is let's be super nice, kind, professional. I don't know what professional means. As if like being sarcastic is unprofessional. But if somebody deserves it, then do you go for the throat? Do you let the snark out on Google reviews?
Personally, as somebody who would be potentially in the market to buy a car from a local high-end car dealer, I'd love to see it if they just lay into somebody. But that's probably not the best like professional thing to do. The best professional thing is probably just to lay out, here's the situation. What's really bugging me, because I'm looking at this right now, I had to go find it. The fact that they do not show that this review was edited is wild. Like, that is essential information for somebody looking at this review to know that if something is shady. Because if it is edited with a timestamp after your response, all credibility to that reviewer should be gone.
I've had 2 people update their reviews. So we're going to get to that in a moment because we're going to get to the results of this. This leads into dealing with public-facing auctions where there's comment sections or marketplace where there's comment sections. Yeah. I basically just called him out on his lie because he didn't show up. He didn't bring cash. I didn't label him a tire kicker. We had a very clear discussion. It was a very nice discussion. He just didn't like the answer. And the interesting thing is this guy left 2 other dealers 5-star reviews thanking them for letting him test drive their car. So it like confirmed to me, I almost called him out on that. Like, see proof that this guy is just looking to drive everybody's cars. Maybe he will eventually buy. I'm not saying that. I'll never say, kind of the boomer response on Marketplace, like, you're not a real buyer. You don't have any cars. You don't have any money. I will never, ever tell anybody that. I don't judge a book by its cover, and at least from customers. Transporters, absolutely. But customers, I won't do that, and I'll never like insult them personally. It's about their character, right? Like, you can have all the money in the world and just perpetually shop, and that's not what we're here for. So I just called him out on the lie, and I said, DJ, unfortunately, is not telling the truth in this review. He's never been to our dealership, and therefore has never shown up with $150K in cash. I explained that he called in wanting to test drive everything. I informed him of the policy, and then at the end, I said, a test drive is a contingency of purchase. We're very happy to accommodate them. And that's what we told DJ over the phone. But he did not like that answer, as it seemed like he wants to taste the cake at all the wedding venues before he even gets engaged. Think that's too spicy?
I mean, maybe a little too spicy, although I like it.
I posted that last night. I slept on it. I read it again. I'm like, I like it. I don't know. I mean, I'm really curious what customers think of reviews like this, right? Because there's the old saying, the customer is always right. But what people forget is that saying is only half of it. The full saying is the customer is always right in matters of taste. And unfortunately, non-customers like this have taken only the first half of that statement and applied it to themselves and tried to use it as a weapon against businesses who refuse them service or won't give them the time of day or call them out on their BS when they leave negative reviews. And it's like, you know what? I think businesses have a right to do that. That's why I put the wall of shame on my website. I'm like, we need to be able to fight back. Now, if we're really in the wrong, I think businesses need to take 1-star reviews or feedback to heart. Absolutely. But I think good businesses should engender a culture such that the customer feels safe to address those issues and give you constructive criticism before it gets to the point of a bad review and address it with the person directly. And I wish all my customers would do that. I want to know before they leave me and go to somebody else because of something they didn't even tell me that I could fix, or maybe not fix for them, but go, I didn't think of that. Maybe that is a character issue, or that is an operations issue or communication issue, and I can do this better the next time. I'd love to have that constructive criticism, and I think businesses need to create that culture such that they get that feedback. And a good business at that point should almost only get 5-star reviews, not because they're perfect, but because they're resolving customers' issues and dealing with the stuff in real time.
Well, I know you've mentioned multiple times when we've talked about car dealers and your experience in similar subjects that you want your customers to have a good experience.
Yeah.
That is how you run an upstanding business. It's also how you get more customers.
Right.
So I don't think any business should be out to give people a bad experience. So you want to fix those. But sometimes, honestly, customer's not right.
Well, and I'm not right all the time. Like, we sell used cars. Sometimes people have a crappy experience. Sometimes a car's break on their way home. And sometimes a customer feels that we should fix that even though it's bought as is, even though we inspected it, even though we serviced it, even though we sent them service records, even though we can't foresee problems. Maybe we could be negligent in not addressing problems that we should have seen or know about, but we can't foresee that something might happen to break 10 miles later. Okay, so let's not go too far down the as-is road, but I think that there's a very good discussion as well that feeds over when you have this feedback in real time on auctions like Bring a Trailer, P-Car Market, and if you post in public groups or private groups or whatever, if you're listing on Marketplace, which is a very good strategy for selling your cars. Don't just list it there, post it in relevant groups, join groups, whatever. But then you open yourself up to the commenters, especially in the Corvette buy-sell trade group where you will just get eaten alive. Bring a Trailer is a great example because the peanut gallery there is brutal. We have a lot of people who will consign cars with us just because they don't want to deal with the peanut gallery. They can't. They're too emotionally connected with their car they're selling. So we as a disconnected third party can typically address it without emotion, but then enter me who gets snarky. I think, Tyler, like your 968 that we represented for you is a great example. Some guy on there commented about the driving video and he's like, hey, there's this terrible noise when you go over the bump. Can you post a better video driving over lots of, like on a bad road, lots of bumps because, it sounds like something's loose in the suspension. And I'm like, man, you're like tanking our auction here. You're not if there's actually an issue. But I watched the video again. I'm like, that's just the noise of a bump. Like a camera phone picks up every single noise and amplifies it. So then I go in and I look at his bid, comment history, whatever, his profile history. He's been a member of Bring a Trailer for 3 to 4 years. He's never once bid on anything, but he has dozens, if not hundreds of comments. Almost all of them were very specific questions, picking a car apart, asking for detailed photos of this, that, whatever, asking nerdy questions, and never, ever bidding. Everything in me wanted to just respond to him. You're not a real buyer. You're just a troll. I'm not answering your question. I've taken the tack that I'll do intelligent jabs, but also answer the question. So I didn't attack this guy. I just answered the question. I'm like, there's no noise, but I'm like, I'm not filming another video for you because you're not a real buyer. I didn't say that. If he pushed the issue, then I would have actually called him out for not bidding. But you have to walk the line on Bring a Trailer of snark and politeness. The issue is most bidders there don't comment. So they're watching the entire thing go down. You know, they're won or lost based on what goes down in the comment section more often than not. That doesn't mean you can't be fun with it. I've had people come to me and say, we appreciate how you handle auctions, and they referenced an auction. I was like, oh, I was kind of snarky on that one. So there is a balance. I don't think that all the time it has to be just super pleasant, put on your sales cap. There's a fine line to be drawn. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comment section how you deal with these types of things. Everybody has a different strategy, whether you're a pizza shop or a car dealership or anything in between. We live and die by these reviews and by comments and online persona. So I've picked my personality and I gotta lay in the bed that I've made, but I'm owning it. Back to the reviews though. The tactic of calling somebody out on their inaccuracies in the review did actually work for me. Ooh. At least once. So a guy had left me a 1-star review. He called me on a Panos Roadster, basically gave me a comp of another car for sale. And I was like, dude, I'll buy that right now. Like, I'm not reducing my price to that because I will buy that one and then mark it up. Like,
this ain't Best Buy, bro.
Which buyers hate hearing that line. That line should not be used by any car salesman. It doesn't work. It's standoffish. Don't use that, even if it's true. It's kind of like saying, I have another offer for X. Buyers either don't care or they think you're lying. But I used it anyway because I'm just like, no, that's not a comp. And then I looked up the comp and it was like 3 years old. I was like, that's not a real comp. So the guy left me a bad review. I had emailed him about another car that was higher mileage that was within the price he had offered. I'm like, here you go. Here's another car in your price range that you want to be at. So he left me a 1-star review and said I was standoffish, blah, 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 whatever. And I responded. I was like, this review isn't truthful. Here's the facts of the review. He called me, used a comp that was 3 years old. Yes, I told him I'd buy that car. I wasn't like super polite about it. I deserved a 2-star for being short with him, but there's a reason for it. And he updated his review to a 4-star and thanked me for sending him another car and gave a truthful review.
Oh, seriously?
Seriously.
Whoa.
And I went back and forth on that. Like, how do I respond to this? And I'm like, no, this review isn't truthful. Was I super nice and pleasant on the phone? No. Was I right? Yes.
Well, I think it's okay that you can acknowledge that maybe you weren't the nicest, most flowery version of yourself that day to give them the best customer service, but also...
Listen, even the nicest, most flowery version of myself is typically wilting, so...
People got to understand, if you can't have people come... imagine you have, 10 people a day come to you with 3-year-old comps, I'm trying to buy this car for that. That's going to get on your nerves, and it's not real. So, there's a human element to this, too, that,
right.
You can't put up with that.
We had one guy, I will never deal with this guy because of his dishonest negotiation. He was trying to buy a manual Murcielago years and years ago when it was a $160,000 car. And he kept sending me comps to justify his $120,000 asking price. And I was like, those aren't manuals. Those are e-gears. That doesn't count. And so then he would circle the part where it's listed as a 6-speed manual. And I'm like, with the Lamborghinis, they're all 6-speed manuals, quote unquote. They're either automated manuals or they're manual manuals. It's the same gearbox. It's just a matter of who is moving the shift lever and the clutch. But if you actually clicked on the listing and looked at the photos, they were e-gears. Just because they're listed as manuals doesn't make them manuals. And I'm like, you know that. I know you know that because you've already looked at the listings and discounted the cars. You're just trying to play me as stupid. He posted everywhere online on all the social media that he was buying the car. Everybody was texting me that knew both of us. It was like, oh man, I hear that guy's buying your car. He was going to twin turbo it. He was going to drive it on the recharge rally, all this stuff. And he hadn't even come to an agreement with us. He was still lowballing us and insulting us, picking apart the condition of the car. And we're like, these are all things we told you. And then when we didn't take his offer, he changed his tune and bleh on everywhere online the same way he did about buying the car, about how the car wasn't that good. I'm not buying it because of this, and that reason. And I'm like, screw you, man. That's so dishonest.
People, that's just clout chasing. They they want people to know they're trying to buy a
100%.
Mercy. Oh, I'm going to twin turbo and I'm going to take it on a rally. I'm going to burn.
This guy also posted pictures of cash on his Instagram showing what he was going to pay his employees if they reached a certain milestone for the year or something like that. I'm like, that's such BS manipulation. This isn't money you paid your employees. This is like dangling a carrot, but it's not like you're putting it on social media to make yourself look better. And get this, he openly is a Christian. And this is why I hate doing business with other Christians who like spew it out there that I'm a Christian because of all this crap. And I'm like, you put this out there and then you do these manipulative things to other people. And I'm like, that is bad business. It's bad business, and it gives the other Christians who are just quietly doing good business and being honorable a really bad name.